So Raymond, let me ask you about this. When I was reading the reports, it seemed that the new president of Egypt is also sort of playing his allies and enemies in the Middle East. So I guess it was about a month ago, there was a report in the Iranian news agency, or by the Iranian news agency, that Morsi said that he wanted to strengthen ties with Iran. Apparently, there was pushback from Egyptian clerics, from members in the Egyptian public. Saudi Arabia was none too happy to see that. So Morsi then announced he was going to sue the Iranian news agency for having published a fake interview. So apparently, he was responding to criticism in the Middle East. And now he's going to Iran for this meeting. So what are we to make of his behavior when it comes to, how he's speaking to fellow Middle Easterners?
It's just back and forth. They say one thing, they get caught, then they go back. His son, just the other day, this is another big scandal, is, I don't know if you know, but in August 24th, the Egyptians, a lot of them want to go on a major protest against Morsi and the Brotherhood. And his son just put out a big issue really declaring that we, as in the Islamists, will kill anyone who dares go and defy my father, the president. And all these other sheikhs and clerics are issuing fatwas saying that we are now, because we have an official Islamic leader, as opposed to someone like Morsi, who was seen as a toady to the West, we now, and this is true, this is part of Islam, you are supposed to offer your absolute devotion and loyalty to this leader, and you can never criticize him, and you can't do anything. And you probably are familiar with what's been happening with Morsi and the media, and some of these reports, which we can discuss. But basically, he said earlier, a while back, when he was running for president, he emphatically declared that under my era as president, I will never interfere or close down any media. Less than a month, that's exactly what he's doing. All the critics on the secular media who are bringing evidence against him, especially all kinds of evidence, they're bringing it up. And what happened a couple of weeks ago? Muslim Brotherhood supporters went out, ransacked the media, beat up the media. He himself is posting Brotherhood overseers, Brotherhood members overseeing all the major media now. And of course, there was the report where during this chaos, a lot of the supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood even crucified some people in public in front of the presidential palace. And this comes from the Arabic media, from various sources. So you get one side, one story, and one action, which is very commonsensical because it follows a pattern that has existed for over a millennium. And then you get basically them telling the West what you want to hear and what is sensible to our brain and what makes sense. Because when I talk about these things, for instance, crucifixions or any kind of thing that emanates from the Islamic world, the Western mindset is so conditioned as to immediately reject it because it sounds absurd, because you've never heard anything about this.
This is a huge slew of problems, and we've been aware of these problems, I think, for a while, and I'm not sure that anyone really at this point seems to suggest that there aren't enormous problems in the new Egypt. I do not hear any good solutions or even suggestions, though, and I would offer that to the table or to Raymond right after. That is the question right now. If we can all agree we've established the nature of this thing is not in the U.S. interest, is not in the West interest, then could in fact become quite dangerous at some point in the future. How can we deal with that now?
So, Anthony, I saw that you had made a note about the August 24th anti-Morsi demonstrations. What then do we make as Egyptian public opinion? We know there are folks who want to protest the current president, but then we also hear the reports that the Muslim Brotherhood is planning to attack these very protesters. Does it seem to you that maybe Egyptian public opinion is more divided than perhaps the Morsi government would have us believe?
It's absolutely divided. The secularists in Egypt are terrified of what's going on. They're very, very frustrated with the government. I think there's probably some that are even frustrated with the West, just sort of buying into the Arab Spring being this wonderful thing that brought this democratically elected government. I mean, it was to whatever degree that the election was legitimate. There's very, very upset secularist movements. And it's interesting is those secularists in Egypt, they're very well aligned with Israel. They're very well aligned with U.S. interests, which is wanting actual democracy that has a government that is not a violent, sort of extractive government. I don't even think Islam has anything to do with what's going on here. These are just very violent individuals that are very extractive, that they want control and they want power. They're playing off their, Egypt's, they're playing Saudi Arabia.
The seculars have no hope of going toe-to-toe with the Muslim Brotherhood and winning. That's the core problem, though. They can protest, they can walk around. That was what they did to get this whole thing going. But as soon as it actually came time to organize, to vote, to bring people out into the streets in a way that would have political consequence, they've been shellacked.
Buck, just to briefly answer your question, I think, people can sort of have maligned folks like me who have been a bit hawkish and the warheads on foreheads. But this is the point, because there's a small window of opportunity to actually have some influence over what happens in a war-torn or regime-change nation. We pass those opportunities up because we don't want to get involved, and then we're left saying, what could we do now?
I'm hoping there's something between nothing and invasion.
Right.
There should be an array of options that I would like to consider. We'll get to at another time.